What's up, guys? It's Jesse, and I'm going to be going over the Unit 9 discussion, which is basically going over and reviewing all the units and topics we've discussed and tying that into how that has affected our perception of crime, legality, criminals, etc. So, throughout the semester, we've examined colorism and the way systemic inequalities drew lines between economic groups. From the beginning, lighter skin was associated with wealth, opportunity, and respectability, while darker skinned people were often denied of those opportunities and forced into poorer and under-resourced environments. And we saw how this system kind of influenced the next generations and our current generation. We also saw the how the unequal distribution of resources reinforce stereotypes like how poverty is inherent to communities of color. We also looked at how these racist ideas affected legal systems and housing policies and policy and practices. We took a look at Redford's article where she explained how crime and legality were often constructed to protect certain groups while it excluded others. And we saw how developers, courts, advertisers, they all kind of work together to embed this racial segregation in our property deeds and legally, defining neighborhoods by racial and economic homogeneity. And this wasn't about individual prejudice. It was a whole system that was legitimized through the law. We also saw something similar to that in Unit 9, where it talked about the history of the Olympics in 1932, 1984, how policy and legality operate to serve political and economic goals instead of community needs. And we also looked at how LA expanded militarized policing and targeted Black and Latino communities, and how they displaced homeless residents and normalized racialized surveillance. This all basically reinforced the idea of how wealth, race, and skin tone are tied to the perceptions of safety and legitimacy, which also made criminality itself racialized. And people who look a certain way or live in certain areas are more likely to be viewed as suspicious, while these systems ignore the more wealthy people that commit crimes because they cover it up as a business or something like that. And the police as well also reinforce these perceptions by targeting communities that were marked as dangerous due to their race, skin tone, or even their economic status. You might often see a lot of news that occur regarding colored people, which some articles and videos might take out of context and reinforce this idea that colored people are dangerous, since there's so much more crime that's caused by colored people statistically. But people fail to realize that the situation and the environment that they live in cause this to happen, which is all due to it ties all the way back to colorism and how that forced colored people into poverty. All this shows that our perceptions of crime, criminals, and legality were shaped by a long history of systemic inequality that privileges whiteness and wealth while marginalizing communities of color, which unfortunately influences our current society as well. So my question for you guys is, how do we improve this society and community where poverty greatly influences the opportunities that poor, non-white people have? And can we fix the damages done, or do we really have to focus on building new and making new opportunities for these people? Leave that in the comments. Thanks for watching.